Hello, I'm Sabrina Rubenstein, your host for tonight's episode. Today we are going to be covering an array of topics from abortion to gun control, COVID-19, mental health, and politics. Each of the interviewees found this as an opportunity to speak their minds on the following topics in a time where using your voice is necessary to make a change. Our country was formed in response to a lack of religious freedom. They then found freedom in war and proceeded to grow on the backs of slavery and racism. In the short time since our country was formed, not much has changed. We still unfortunately face racism, sexism, religious prejudice, but most concerning of all, the minds of those in charge has stayed the same. We are going to commence tonight's segment by speaking on the issue of gun control. For those that are not aware, the Bill of Rights holds 10 constitutional amendments. These were created during a time where technology was slowly advancing. If our founding fathers did not even have cars, how could they predict that today we would have military-grade weapons such as the AR-15? The issues we are facing today in relation to gun regulation is directly related to the Second Amendment, which gives people the right to bear arms. Let's hear from our interviewees about their opinions.
Hello, my name is David Rubenstein. I'm 57 years old and I live in Westerly, Rhode Island. Several weeks have passed since two horrendous shootings occurred within 2 weeks of each other. The hateful barrage of bullets attacking citizens shopping at a supermarket broke my heart. We will never know if this was preventable, but common sense would say that this animal never should have had access to the guns that he and his sick and demented mind used as tools for his bigotry and his hatred. I almost was numb as I watched the story from Texas. Relatable on so many fronts, I was horrified to think that my daughter or my wife would not be safe in what we think is a safe space. Thinking about that little girl that covered herself in her friend's blood. How can that child ever overcome that trauma? Several weeks have passed, and I am numb at the talking heads on all sides of the spectrum. Then, news that a bipartisan agreement for the framework for a gun reform package was reached by our politicians. Hopefully my numbness will turn to hope.
Hi, my name is Tiffany. I am 21 years old and I am from Rhode Island. I am very tired about everything going on in the world currently, so I'm just going to jump right on into this. Do you feel safe in school? Not one bit. I vividly remember going from feeling safe in school to being absolutely terrified to leave my house in December of 2012. 2 weeks into me being 12 years old. So I was in 7th grade, a middle schooler. This was when the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting happened. And it was, from what I can remember, I'm sure there are some school shootings or shootings in general, mass shootings, that happened. But this is what I vividly remember being what made me scared to leave my house. So I remember it as my first exposure to a mass shooting, and especially one that was close to me. I remember being scared to leave my house, and especially to leave my mom. That is when I realized that I may not come home once I step foot outside of my house and get on to the school bus. And since then, I have sadly, and I always get upset when I say this out loud, I since then have had a text that, God forbid anything happens to me because I'm in college now, while I'm in class or just out and about, God forbid something happens, I have a text that's ready to be sent to my mom. Yeah, I was 12 years old. There are kids that are younger than me who have already had this realization as well. It is sickening that we put guns before actual human lives. There are children, elementary school age children, who are terrified to go to school because we keep allowing this to happen. I have not felt safe leaving my house since the age of 12. I went to go visit my boyfriend who lives in the UK, and that is the safest I have felt leaving the house since I was 12 years old. Can you offer a solution for gun control? We need much stricter gun laws. The fact that an 18-year-old can go and buy an assault rifle but cannot buy a pistol until they're 21 years old, cannot drink until they're 21 years old, cannot smoke until they're 21 years old. It's just absolutely mind-boggling to me. We need much stricter gun laws, like I said. There needs to be like monthly mental health checkups on anyone who owns a gun. There needs to be a designated spot where the gun must be safely locked up. An officer needs to come and inspect this spot where the gun is being locked up and make sure it's correctly and safely locked up at least once a month. Only allow people to have a certain amount of guns, and there's really no need for like more than one gun. Ammunition needs to be out of the gun and put in a different area than where the gun is locked up. Make it so you can only get handguns, and make it much harder to purchase a gun rather than walking into your local grocery store like Walmart and having access to buy one.
I absolutely believe in our Second Amendment, and having an assault rifle should be a little bit harder to get. By that, I don't believe it's just a background check. I do believe that you need to have a mental health evaluation. I think this is only fair. This is fair for the person. This is fair for the person around them. But completely eliminating that right, I don't agree with. At the end of the day, whether you or I believe it's a way to protect ourselves, our founding fathers gave that to us as a basic human right, like the right to it is a right to defend ourselves, because Ukraine had no weapons, and now the same people advocating to take away our guns are advocating to send Ukraine weapons because they can't defend themselves. Like, imagine if something really horrible happened, that the United States was in jeopardy. Nobody's gonna send us guns. Like, nobody is gonna do for us what we're doing for them. So it's something to consider. But when it comes to school shootings, you have to understand, like, where is the line drawn? There should be very limited entrances to schools. There should not be a way for people to get into that property without sensors going off. The day before the recent shooting in Texas, the school shooting, we sent 40 billion, not million, billion to Ukraine. When if we would have sent 20 million to Ukraine and then used the rest of the billions and billions of dollars to protect our schools and to properly train and arm teachers, a lot of people wouldn't have gotten hurt. Banks are not often shut up. Places with armed guards are not often shut up. So why would we not arm the people in schools? Like, I just don't understand that. So it's like, take away guns, this will help it. No, because would you prefer to die by bomb? You know, it's just people who are sick and want to hurt people, they're gonna do it with a gun, without a gun. But as far as gun rights, how to get a gun, you should have to not only go a background check, but a mental health evaluation.
Hello, I'm Gina Rubenstein, and I reside in Westerly, Rhode Island. Did I feel safe in school? Well, that was a long time ago, so I don't even remember these issues being brought up about not being safe as far as somebody coming to shoot in the school. But I currently work in an elementary school system in Westerly, Rhode Island, and I do feel safe, but I'm thinking about it. You know, these things come on, this horrific tragedy that just happened in Texas. You can't get that out of your mind. The question will arise, what will you do? What would I do? I don't want to have to be thinking about that. I don't want to have to make a decision of, oh my God, what would I do if this happens? You know, guns are meant to kill people. I I don't think that they should be so easily attainable. What is the solution? What is the solution? Should there be background checks? You shouldn't just be able to go in and buy one. The family member recently applied for a job, and it's a 6-week entailed background check to go for a job. How long does it take to purchase a gun? I don't even know, because I'm not interested. So something definitely has to be done. They should not be so accessible, and especially, combat weapons. A combat weapon should only be sold to somebody that's in the army or in law enforcement. A civilian should not even be able to have that type of a weapon. What are they using it for? I don't understand.
Thank you everyone for your wonderful input. What I gathered is that most people don't believe we should live in a gunless society. Rather, we should live in a society where guns are more closely regulated. I'll put it this way. If at 18 years old I cannot purchase alcohol, go to a casino, rent a car, purchase marijuana, and even in some cases rent a hotel room, why should I be able to have a military-grade weapon that requires virtually no training before purchasing? The stress that is put on today's youth is immeasurable, and a lot of times the anxiety that goes along with going to school no longer has to do with bullying. It is about the fear of school not being a safe space because of school shootings. In May of 2020, a study showed that there had been 27 school shootings in this year alone. I believe that gun regulation could have a positive effect on the mental well-being of both today and tomorrow's youth, which is what our next segment is about.
I fully believe that mental health care should be much more accessible and a lot less stigmatized. Mental health issues are extremely common, and it seems that most people do struggle with some sort of mental health issue. And because of that, it seems that it should not be this stigmatized, unspeakable thing. It has gotten a lot better. People are a lot more open with it now, but it is still kind of a taboo subject.
Issues on mental health, they arise all the time. And it is a stigma. But we all have something. So the care should be there. There should definitely be more care attainable for somebody that needs it, for whether it's just speaking to a psychologist, a therapist. I know of people who have some emotional problems who want to speak to therapists and they can't even get in for appointments for months. So if that person was apt to hurt themselves, maybe hurt somebody else, you're telling them that they need to wait months before they could get in for an appointment to speak to someone, I think there lies some flaw. So definitely there should be more health care provided for people that need it, for whatever stage it is. Somebody could be, really, really bad mentally, or just, maybe something not so bad. Maybe somebody just going through grief not that that's not bad, but something that just needs a little extra help coping with whatever maybe everyday life issue that might be happening. There shouldn't be a stigma. I think all of us have some sort of mental health issue at one time or another, whatever it might be. And I definitely think that healthcare should be more accessible. Absolutely.
am confirmed to be diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and depression. I am on Lexapro 20 milligrams. Gonna be real with y'all. I would literally fall to the floor, mental health breakdowns, I like to call them, just getting everything out, bawling my eyes out, crying in front of my mom's door. Yeah, it was very bad. So my mom had mentioned that I should see a therapist and had got the ball rolling. My mental health was at an all-time low once COVID hit, which I'll get more into. Like many people, I switched to online school and had the hardest time. I'm in a long-distance relationship as well. My boyfriend and I, as I mentioned, my boyfriend lives in the UK and I obviously live here in the wonderful United States of America. And we were unable to see each other for 2 years. My family, like many others, were out of work. Yeah, COVID was the absolute worst, especially in 2020. As someone who has gone through the waiting game and the trial and error with therapists, 1000% yes. And this is also the profession that I'm currently going towards. So, yes. I had actually waited 6 months for a therapist, which I learned was really common during COVID. And it's still really common to this day, actually, here in 2022. And I waited this long just to find out that this therapist no longer accepted my insurance company. So then I had to get on another wait list for another therapist, and it was another 6-month waiting game. Just don't give up, because in the end, it's so worth it. Don't be discouraged. It's so common. So common. But yeah, mental health care needs to be more accessible. And I cannot imagine as well how hard it is for those who do not have insurance, or those who cannot afford the copay, who do have insurance, or just the payment in general, whether they have insurance or not, which leads many people to not go and get their mental health in check, which is really sad. So I had not wanted to see a therapist, despite being so mentally unwell, because of the stigma. I had believed that seeing a therapist meant you were weaker, like you couldn't deal with your problems on your own, even though on the inside, mentally, I was not doing too great. Just like so many other people who go untreated, the stigma behind mental health was overruling the fact that I needed to go see a therapist, and I didn't want to be viewed as weak.
Much of the pandemic was related to politics. Who believed in science and the effectiveness of masks, and who didn't. Since the introduction of the media, politics has become almost a popularity contest. In 2020, I worked with one of our interviewees on a project called Society and Politics in 2020, so I'm interested in hearing the comparison of viewpoints in the last 2 years in our next segment.
Hi, my name is Sandra Laub, and I'm an educator. I have heard that America is at a crossroads, that there may be two moral paths ahead of us. I'm all for the one that affirms our democratic way of life, the one that can adapt with each generation, the one we teach in high school through our founding documents. In my public school, we complement the Declaration of Independence with the Constitution of the Iroquois Nations and Susan B. Anthony's speeches and Sojourner Truths, to name a few. We continue to honor America's great diversity and tradition of religious tolerance and town hall spirit. I teach my students to honor all voices, to argue a point fairly, with respect, and with credible information, and to abhor violence. But here's the choice at the crossroads. Do we want to be a virtuous democracy based on the belief that we're all equal, that we all deserve protection under the law, and that those laws and policies ensure that everyone has an equal chance to do well? Or do we choose to be like a mob, like the kind that stormed the Capitol building on January 6, 2021, an unprecedented event in our nation's history? I think on every issue, from climate change to voting rights to gun control to reproductive rights, we as a society are faced with a moral choice about how to preserve the very soul of democratic America. Change is coming, and it's not just the higher cost of everything. We can get through that. Or the nation's demographics. That's a plus in my thinking. I would pay more in a graduated income tax structure to protect children and the environment if I knew that corporate America was also paying its fair share. I stand on my neighborhood post office steps to protest systemic discrimination, and I think about the inequalities in housing and health care exposed by the pandemic, and I worry that the opportunity to change those inequalities is passing us by. But I'm optimistic about our leadership and about my faith that most Americans think the great American experiment is not over, not by a long shot, that it gets reborn in every generation and certified at the voting booth. I urge you to vote. Vote your conscience at the next election where you live, and stay informed about the issues that impact you and your family. Go online to Vote 411. Thank you, League of Women Voters, to register if you haven't already, and find out where your local, state, and national candidates stand.
Politics in the United States is something that I try my best to stay up to date on. As a queer woman, politics absolutely affect me because I see day to day people arguing about whether I should have the right to marry who I want, whether we should be able to adopt children, whether we should have the same rights as straight people. It is extremely worrying in a lot of cases. From what I've been able to see, the people who are able to get into positions of power in the United States are not typically the people who are best representing the wants and needs of the day-to-day people here. Because of this, it seems that unless you are a white, cisgender, heterosexual man, you do not have your needs and your wants properly represented in politics and in the decision making. A decade ago, I was not paying attention to politics. I really had no idea what was going on. However, from what I've been able to tell, politics have become so sensationalized almost.
While these are very different topics, in many ways they are related. It is often hard to pinpoint which issues in society are the most pressing. However, I find it interesting that the government is more focused on creating a war against women's rights than seizing the weapons of war that are killing children in their own classrooms. Earlier, we spoke about the Bill of Rights, but we are now going to move focuses to the Supreme Court. When a case reaches the Supreme Court, it is because it has been appealed from a lower one. There are many landmark cases that have had positive effects on our society, such as Roe v. Wade. This case provides protection for pregnant women to have the right to choose to have an abortion without excessive government restriction. This ruling, however, is on the verge of being overturned, meaning women will no longer have the right to choose. Our final segment focuses on abortion and how the new decisions being made by the Supreme Court could affect women in our society.
Hi, my name is Alexis. I am 23 years old and I am a community organizer in Virginia. I am pro-abortion. I vehemently believe that every individual should have the right to make decisions about their own lives and their own bodies without interference from others. I don't want to be pregnant. I don't mean right now. I mean like period. And I'm not speaking to my desire to have kids. That is another thing entirely, and I wish we'd stop equating the two things. I simply do not want to experience pregnancy. I do not want to experience life in a pregnant body. I don't want to give birth. The whole experience sounds deeply unpleasant and frankly scary to me. Like exactly the kind of thing that would send me into a depressive spiral. Like being in a hostage situation. So my right to an abortion, to have control over what my body experiences as much as humanly possible in the wake of disease, illness, and injury, is essential to my well-being. And I want to be clear, this isn't a rant against people being pregnant. I know some people experience great joy during their pregnancy and birth. Others maybe wouldn't call their feelings joyful, but still find great personal meaning in their experience, and that's awesome for them. It's simply not for me. And that's the point. Every person should be able to make decisions for themselves to protect their own peace, their own health, and their own lives as they want them to be. It's this belief and the terrifying knowledge that there are folks out there who would force me to be pregnant against my will, despite all my self-knowledge that screams it would not be good for me in my life, that drove me to seek out a job as a reproductive health and rights community organizer. A job where I can advocate for this right of mine, this right of yours, the right to draw from your own knowledge and make the best decisions for yourself. It's important to remember that not only folks who identify as women seek abortion care. Trans men and non-binary folks seek out abortion care to make the best choices for themselves too. This impending overturn of Roe v. Wade is an attack on everyone's rights, and stripping away the right to an abortion will certainly be the first domino to fall in the realm of bodily autonomy. It will not end with abortion. Don't write laws that undermine an individual's personhood. Don't elect officials into office that believe their personal beliefs should dictate what you can and cannot do with your body and your life. Acknowledge and center those most impacted by abortion bans, trans folks, Black and brown people, people with low incomes.
Okay, so this is not how we're supposed to do the video blog, but I do want to make sure I shed some light on just a different point of view. When it comes to abortion, I am pro-choice, but that doesn't come to an extent. I do believe that everything does need moderation and everything does need to be modified, controlled, etc. Abortion should not be allowed full term. There should be a cutoff. In Florida, we have the first 15 weeks until abortions are not allowed. That gives a woman over 3 months, over the entire first trimester, to make that decision for her body. I've had a lot of personal situations that I can relate to people who have been in really sticky situations, you know? Whether it's rape, the really bad alternative, almost as bad or worse, I don't know, incest, you know? So we need to keep those doors open for people in situations that we don't understand, situations that a lot of us have not been in. But I do believe there has to be a cutoff, and I don't believe that abortion should be a form of contraception. It's not even safe for the woman.
So I am pro-choice. I do not understand why people still feel the need to tell others what they can and cannot do with their bodies. It saddens and sickens me that we are still having this conversation on whether abortion should be legal or not in 2022. Banning abortion doesn't eradicate abortion. You are simply just going to be getting rid of women's access to safe abortions. Simple as that. We've seen in the past what getting rid of access to safe abortions does, and how dangerous and deadly that is. So why are we still having this conversation? Why are we still planning on getting rid of abortion? It's just absolutely mind-boggling to me that this is still being talked about and still being discussed after everything we've seen happen in the past. If you're against abortions, just do not have one. It's as simple as that. And do not go around shaming those that do and telling people what they can and cannot do with their bodies. You don't know what led to that decision. You don't know how hard it was for them to get to that decision, and you shaming them is just going to make them feel even worse. You don't know the circumstances behind how they got pregnant. You don't know any medical issues they potentially have. You don't know their life circumstances. And so on. You just do not know. It is nobody's business but the one having an abortion on why they have decided to have one. Those to say they are pro-life as well, those that say they are pro-life, they are only pro-life until that child is born. Just do not have one if you don't want one and are against them, and keep your mouth shut. It's really not that hard. This is important to me because it is a basic right. Simple as that. Abortion is healthcare. Taking away someone's access to having a safe abortion is just one step backwards and one step closer to the government controlling women and their bodies. I can do what I want with my body, my choice, not the government's. If I was to get pregnant right now as well with a girl, she would have more rights while still inside of me than she would the minute she was born, which is absolutely crazy and upsetting to think about. Do you feel that this is an attack against women's rights? I do believe it is an attack against women's rights. 1000%. It is one way the government can control women and will more than likely cause a domino effect, leading to more basic rights being taken away from women. Women have worked too damn hard, and I cannot stress this enough. Women have worked too damn hard to have the rights that we have today. And it is so upsetting to me to see this country going backwards and just taking away rights from women. To all the men out there who are against abortions, or those who just do not want their significant other or whoever they might get pregnant to have an abortion, this is for you. Get a vasectomy. Simple as that. A vasectomy can be reversed. So get a vasectomy. And if you, for the women out there who are against abortions, just don't have one. It's easy as that.
And is it an attack on women's rights? And yes, I do believe it is. Absolutely. I don't feel that the government should make a decision saying that abortion is not allowed. It's not a black and white issue. And there may be so many different factors involved in a woman's decision in getting an abortion, and that should be her right. And I just don't feel at all that it should be, they should have a choice. The choice should be able to be made, and it shouldn't be against the law for the government to decide what is right for that individual, or for that matter, that family. It may not just be the woman's decision. It may be a family decision for whatever reasons, and their personal reasons, and nobody should be questioning it.
Wow. I'm so impressed, proud, and thankful for all of the opinions of today's interviewees. They chose to be brave and speak out against relevant issues that are affecting today's society and could even have lasting effects on our future. Thank you for participating, and thank you for watching today's segment.